Hello, in this video I'm going to talk about light attack weaving, and if you're wanting to learn how to do this and you're struggling with that, I want to show kind of some easy things that you can work on to kind of get into doing a little bit easier job with that. So I'm going to talk about that in this video, so if that interests you, please stay tuned. Just a word about that ahead of time. This is not an advanced video, it's more for starting out kind of thing. So if you already know how to light attack, this might not give you very much information. I may touch on some things that you didn't know about or didn't think about possibly, but this is going to mainly be geared for people that are trying to start out with light attack weaving. And so just a heads up on that. I am going to put chapters in the video as I always do. And I will link any videos that I discuss in the description. So if I mention a video that I've done previously and you're interested in that, check the description. It's probably going to be pinned in there. So let's get started. First off, I'm going to recommend, if you're on console especially, that you use an add-on called Battle Scrolls. And why is this important? This will tell you how you are doing with your damage. Just to show you a parse here, you can get an active account of how many times you miss light attacks in your parse. So in this werewolf parse, I missed 8 light attacks total. So that's a pretty low number for me. Usually I miss more than this, but it did pretty well on the werewolf build there, as you can see. But this is the super high hitting meta right now. So that gives you an idea of why this add-on is important. It will help you figure out what kind of damage you're doing in terms of direct damage or damage over time or area of effect or single target, so you can figure out what slottables you need to put on for your build for your blue CP tree. And then also it can tell you what skills are doing a great deal of damage and maybe some that are not doing very much. And maybe you need to slot something else on your build. But what we're going to focus on in this video is the light attack weaving, and this activity tab here is a really good one to use because it'll tell you how often you're missing light attacks. And when you miss light attacks, you can lose out on a lot of damage. For example, on this build, you can see the light attacks were the second largest damage contributor there. And so if you're not hitting these regularly, you could be losing out on a lot more than that, because light attacks will trigger your enchantment glyphs, and that can also then turn activate status effects. So it can kind of snowball into you're missing a lot of damage just because you're missing light attacks. So just a small little caveat here. If you are on a heavy attack build, or if you're using the Velothi mythic, then light attacking is not as pivotal. However, you still want to take steps on your build to make sure that you are activating your weapon glyphs. For example, on a dual wield front build, usually you want to slot blade cloak, and that is so that it activates your weapon glyphs all the time. And that way you don't lose out on that activated damage because you're just firing skills off instead. This will generate an activation on your enchantment guaranteed. This is one of the skills in the game that does that. If you are on your front bar and you're on a destruction staff, Wall of Elements is the one that you want to use for that. If you have a bow build, then Volley is the skill you want to use for that. And then two-handed, the Stampede skill is the skill that you want to use for that one. So let's get into the actual light attacking. As I said, I recommend that you get a Battle Scrolls add-on and turn it on, and that way you can track how you're doing with your progress. It's really important to be able to see what you're actually doing with your light attack weaving in an actual log, and that'll help you. So for the first, as you're starting off, I'm going to recommend you start with the trial dummy, and the reason why is because that's going to give you some buffs that are easier to track if you're not using the fancy action bar. I've done videos on the Battle Scrolls add-on and the fancy action bar, and another add-on I'm going to recommend is the add-on Loadouts. I will tag the playlist for add-ons, and I will pin all three of those videos: the add-on Loadouts, the Battle Scrolls video, as well as the other one. So to start off, I'm going to recommend that whatever your spammable is on your build, we're just going to use that one to start off. So just so you can get the timing and understand how often you're supposed to be hitting your skill, to give you an idea of the pace, because I've heard a lot of times when I'm in trials, you hear people button mashing in the comms, and you can really tell, man, that person isn't doing anything, because if you hear them just button mashing like crazy, they're not doing anything. That you're not supposed to be smashing your buttons that fast. And so we'll get into that, and we'll show you how fast you're supposed to be hitting your skills, because it's one skill every second. If you do more than that, you're going to log jam your lineup there, and most of that stuff is not even going to activate, and you're wasting a lot of energy doing all that stuff. So, and you're probably actually in reality doing far less damage, because some of that stuff is actually getting canceled out and not even activating in addition to your light attacks. So we're just going to start off using surprise attack and light attack just to give you the cadence. And so why I like using the fancy action bar is when you hit a skill, as I just did there, it gives you a timer like on my skill there with an actual number. So what you need to do is you need to fire a skill once every second. And so when it ticks from 9 to 8, that's when you're wanting to hit your skill. Right when it ticks every second is when you're wanting to hit your skill. Now, if you want to start off with just hitting the skill and that's it, just so you can get the pacing of that. So for example, we're just going to go here and go hit the skill, 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 and hit the skill. And then you can go in here to the journal and you can look at today, and you can see I missed 6 light attacks with 7 activations, which means I missed every single one of them. Well, duh, I wasn't even using light attack. But you can see that's how often you need to do that. So I'll just hit my execute in between, so that it's basically every half second I'm hitting a skill, just to show you what that does. So you're going to go okay. So I should have had about 20 activations there. And as you can see, I only had 9, because a lot of those button presses that I did got canceled out. Some of them ended up being the execute, some of them ended up being the surprise attack, but they didn't all activate because I was pressing too many buttons out too soon. So basically, you need to figure out what it feels like to hit a button every second. And how the easy way for me to do that is to use the fancy action bar, because you can really get a good time right there on your skill bar that ticks down for you. As long as you just keep a skill up like this, then you can kind of really get the timing down. So for this round, I'm going to do just the light attack and the spammable, just to show you. And once you get a buff on your bar that has an actual timer, if you don't have access to add-ons, as you can see, the trial dummy is ticking down. Once you have those types of buffs on your bar, you can look at one of those and use one of those for your timer. If you don't have add-ons or you don't want to use them, you can use the buff that's on your bar right here. Now, when I hit the dummy again, that's going to change to 2 minutes, but I'll get other buffs going that have a timer on it, such as minor savagery or something like that, in content that can get you a timer on your bar, basically. So here we go. I'm going to hit the skill, and then we're going to go light attack, skill, 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 light attack, skill. And we're going to head kill that. Okay, and then we're going to go down to the bottom one because it's the newest. And as you can see, I didn't miss any light attacks, and I had 9 activations. And the time lost is 1.4 seconds, which is really low. Although I didn't do it for very long, it was only 10 seconds. So this is how you should start working on your light attack weaving. And then I would say once you've got this down to a good, you understand the pacing of it, then you can start advancing into maybe doing a whole bar. I highly recommend, if you don't have a werewolf, get a werewolf. It's really easy to run these because it's only a 1-bar build. There's no bar swapping. It does a ton of damage, so it's a fun build to run. So you're really going to get some big numbers. For example, I parsed on here. I kept it because it was just a fun thing to see on a 1-bar build, 175,000 on a werewolf. So you can hit a lot higher on a werewolf right now than a lot of other builds can. So all you want to do basically is once you get your advancement of your timing down, then you can get your whole front bar going. And once you kind of understand that you need to light attack right before your skill, do it before the skill, not after. You want to light attack first. So then you can start implementing other things. So for example, your spammable is what you're going to want to hit when you don't have anything else to reactivate. If you've got something to reactivate, then you want to use that on your global cooldown. That's what the community calls it when you need to hit your skill. So for example, I'll talk you through the 1-bar activation here for the werewolf. I'm going to pre-buff with this skill here, the Hersene's skill. And then I'm going to light attack and hit roar and get my synergy, and then my spammable, and then I'm going to activate the 2 damage over time skills on the square and the triangle. And then I'm just going to watch my skills, and I'm going to just dance on the spammable here. And as soon as I need to hit my damage over times, I'll hit my damage over times, and I'll keep my Hersene's buff up. And that's basically what you need to do when you get a little bit more advanced on your light attack weaving, is you need to just be able to go to the other skills when they're running down. And that's what you do on that activation, is you reapply your damage over time when they need to. And then if you don't have anything to reapply, like right now, then I go over to damage over time. Then you just sit on your spammable until you have something to jump to. And as soon as you have something to reapply, you just handle that. And then you sit on your damage, or your spammable rather, when you don't have anything else to work on. Now this gets more difficult with a 2-bar build setup, but this is kind of a good baby step from just doing the spammable. You can jump to a 1-bar build like this that still does decent damage. And then once you get this down, then you can start implementing a 2-bar build or even a 1.5-bar build where you have a bar swap to handle. And so you get the idea there. So for that parse, I probably did not do very well with the light attack weaving. I missed 46, but you get the idea. What you need to do once you kind of get comfortable with the cadence is you need to understand how to handle everything on your bar. You want to start off by applying all your damage over time stuff. So you get that damage running like this. And then when you don't have anything to reapply, you just sit on your spammable, light attacking and spamming. And then instead of your spammable, you go light attack damage over time, light attack damage over time. And then you go back to your spammable, and then you reapply a skill when it's going to drop off. Same with your ultimate. That goes in the same window as your skills do. You don't hammer your ultimate and then you try to light attack skill all in the same window. That ultimate activation needs to go in the same time frame as a skill would be. So once you get that cadence down and you get understanding how often you should be hitting spells or skills, then bar swapping becomes a lot easier because the system is going to understand and read your bar swap a lot easier. I think a lot of times when people have trouble bar swapping, it's because they're log jamming the system with a bunch of skill activations and it's not reading your bar swap, and that's why it's not happening. It's because you probably got a lot of skills lined up for activation in the queue, and the bar swap is not even in first or second, it's probably third or fourth. So once you get your activation rhythm down, you're probably going to see a lot better performance on how you bar swap and activate skills. One thing I will note is if you are using the Stampede skill here, this is a little bit tricky to bar swap off of. And so what I try to recommend is if you've got two skills that are about to expire at the same time, so I'll just hit Barb Trap and I'll hit Stampede there. So as you can see, these two on the back bar are going to expire on the back bar pretty quick, close together. So I'm going to bar swap, hit Stampede first, and then Carve, and I'll bar swap off of Carve instead. So try to get some other skill on your back bar to be the last thing before you go into a bar swap. Otherwise, if you try to bar swap off of a Stampede, it takes an extra little bit for you to be able to actually do that because you're not done with the animation. So that's one little thing I'm going to mention before I close the video out. But if you thought this video was helpful or interesting, please consider liking the video and subscribing to my YouTube channel. I have a large catalog of videos on the Elder Scrolls Online. If you go to my YouTube channel and go to my created playlists, you'll be able to find all of that content organized by subject there. Again, I will link everything that I mentioned in the description, so check that out if it interests you. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in another video. Bye.